All right, I'll call to order the regular meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville for Tuesday, September 12th, 2017, and we will start with roll call.
Barbara Stockhausen?
Yes.
Ken Killian?
Here.
Eileen Nichols?
Here.
Tom Knoll?
Here.
Catherine Westaby? Here. Barbara Doss?
Here.
And Don Francis.
Here.
All right, this evening we have two special presentations. The first will be a revaluation update with our city assessor, accurate appraisal. So if we could have you come up to the microphone over here, please, and give a little explanation of what we can expect. If you will give your names, please.
My name is Barbara Blusky. I'm an account manager with Accurate Appraisal.
My name is Wayne Kaler. I am the head of marketing and sales for Accurate Appraisal.
So basically, we're here tonight just because I was contacted by Jan and Nicola, and they wanted me just to give you an update as far as what we're doing to gear up for your revaluation in 2018. Currently, we are going door to door, trying to get into all of your properties for walkthroughs. I estimate that we'll be completed with that in about 2.5 weeks. After that, what we'll do is anybody we couldn't get into, we'll send out a letter requesting, if you weren't home, here's appointment times, please make an appointment so we can come in and check. Basically, we're just verifying data, making sure we have the right room counts, that the sketch is correct, that the size, bathrooms, that sort of thing. After that, if no one responds yet, we'll send out an additional letter saying this is the last chance you're going to have for us to get in. And I think that'll be completed probably the first week of December, that all walkthroughs will be done. We will be back again after the first of the year to check on building permits and the work roll with splits and that sort of thing. And then during the summer, we'll be busy working on sales from the year prior, entering those in, as well as any building permits and that sort of thing, and getting all the data entered from the field staff collecting the data. And then we'll end up obviously going through and doing our stats and doing the revaluation. Now, the reason you're doing a revaluation obviously is because you're out of compliance. The Department of Revenue tracks sales versus assessments, and once you're below or above 10%, you have about 4 to 5 years to get back in compliance. You've been out of compliance since 2014. Did you have anything to add?
I think with that, we'll field any questions anybody would have about the reevaluation, and then after that, I'll talk to you a little bit about what we can do going forward that might be a better option than to wait this long.
I do have a question. You said your field stat, during the summer of when? Next summer, when they're going to compile all this data? I mean, Barb, you said during the summer. So are we talking about
Right.
now, or are we talking
Right.
about 2018?
We're doing the revaluation in 2018. We're doing the walkthroughs. We started your walkthroughs
Right,
currently.
I understand that.
Yep. And so then we will actually do the reassessment and adjust all the values next summer.
Okay, so the summer work you're talking about was summer of 2018.
Correct.
Where you're compiling data.
So if you knock on my door, what can I expect? Are you coming in and measuring every room, or what exactly will you be doing?
We measure from the outside. We verify the size from the outside. When we knock on your door, we're just coming in, we're verifying room counts, bathroom counts, and making sure, do you have a finished basement, do you not? And it only takes about 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. And how will I know it's really accurate appraisal coming in my?
We drive company vehicles that are marked, as well as they wear company logoed shirts, as well as a tag with their picture on it. So they have picture IDs.
So if I wanted to get a hold of you, I receive cards in the mail already from your firm, so I would have that access if I want to get a hold of you to set up an appointment if I knew I was going to miss you or something.
Correct. If we went to your house and you were not available, you'll receive a letter from us indicating that we were there, you weren't home. You can either schedule online, we have online scheduling, or you can even call into the office to make an appointment that works for you.
One of the misconceptions is that you have to sit and wait for us. You never have to wait for the assessor unless you have a set appointment. So if you see me down your street, I could be coming down your street, but I might come down one side of the street and not down the other. So I always tell people, don't ever wait for us. If you want to set time, We'll send you a notice and it'll say, hey, you weren't home, now's the time to set an appointment. So you don't ever have to sit and wait for the assessor to come down your street.
Have you had problems getting in? I mean, just people saying no, they're not going to let you in?
For the most part, no. Generally, it's just somebody's not home during the day right now.
Okay.
Yeah. We average about 30% when we do our initial visits.
And how many people do you actually have working in Platteville to do the door-to-door?
5 to 6.
5 to 6, okay.
The other reason that we go right down the street and try to catch as many people home as we can is, number one, they're doing the outside measurements that day. So when the guy comes and does the walkthrough, all he's doing is the actual walkthrough. Number two, a lot of people work during the day. So then we do our callbacks at night. Well, as it gets later in the year, it's already dark when he's coming there. So that way, that exterior is already done.
You carry a little stick, little white stick marked off in feet, 5 feet.
5-foot stick.
And how can I check on the data for my houses as to whether the measurements are correct?
Basically, I mean, all we're doing is measuring outside. So when this whole process is done, you can say, can you give me a copy of my property record card? Part of that copy is a sketch. And it might say, well, it's 24 feet on the right side of your house. You go out there and say, yep, that's 24 feet on the right side of my house. Or you know your house is a 30 by 40. And we come up with 1,380 square feet. Well, you know that's not 30 by 40, so something's wrong. But that's, our guys, 80% of the time have sketches already. They're just verifying the existing sketch or making sure that there's no additions that were missed.
I had the experience a few years ago, they measured a garage and they were 10 feet off.
Our company measured the garage 10 feet off?
Yes.
Wow, so it was measured or was data entered 10 feet off? So there's a couple different things there. It could be that person data entered and thought it was 18 feet and put in 28. So it's possible that there's an error. I mean, I can't say that we're spotless, no errors. I would like to say we try to be.
This was the actual on-site measurement.
Sure.
Okay, my next question is, what factors will cause my evaluation or anybody's evaluation to go down? Or you expect them all to go up?
They're all going to increase. It's based off a market. State of Wisconsin's a market state. So we analyze sales based on type and neighborhood and adjust them according to current market. Currently, I looked at your assessment ratio. Residential's coming in at 97.89 and commercial's at 79%. So that's telling us that all properties are selling for more than what the actual assessed values are.
Our goal ultimately is 100% fair market value based on sales. Now, the only time we would really waver off of the sales is obviously new construction that could go by cost or sales. Commercial could go by information. So we send out all the commercial, try to collect as much information from the commercial properties as we can, because obviously there's not a lot of Burger King sales. But we look at other fast food restaurants that have sold, not only in this community, but other ones that we have. Also try to get as much data from them about their property, and that's where them reviews come from.
Other questions, anyone, or comments? So you mentioned you have a website, so people could go onto the website to get information or to contact you. And I know on the city website, Karen, I think that we have links.
Yes, and I think that'd be the best place for people to go for Platteville specific information is to go to our website, and there's a link on the homepage.
All right. Thank you so much for being here this evening. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I might just add one additional comment that Ken had mentioned, what if everybody's property value goes up, which is certainly not what we expect, right? We expect that some will go up, some will go down. But if every property value was to go up, that does not mean the city would get more money. The city's levy is the city's levy. It just means that actually the mill rate would end up being reduced if everybody's property were to go up. So I just want that to be clear, that property values going up doesn't mean that the city is going to collect more money.
And ultimately, to touch on that is, when we're done with the community, we might say that the average residential went up 7%. So if you went up 7%, your tax burden actually did not increase due to this reevaluation. Now, if you went up 10%, number one, you should look and make sure all your data is correct. And if your data is correct, then you have to ask the assessor and say, let me see the comparable sales. And then if you feel that it's still too high, then you just have to bring documentation that you feel your value is too high. And we would show you why we feel your value is correct. And that's part of the whole open book process.
And I'm sorry, you did mention something about having ideas about perhaps not having the,
Yes,
discrepancy.
the other thing now, we run 98 communities all over the state of Wisconsin. One of the things that we do and that the state of Wisconsin really encourages us to do is what's called full value, which means you never have save up for a total reevaluation again. So if you guys elected to do it in 2019, 2020, you could go to a full value system where what that means is every single property gets reviewed every single year based on sales. Doesn't necessarily mean we do physical walkthroughs, because obviously that costs a lot of money, and we just did physical walkthroughs. So I wouldn't even recommend that you did physical walkthroughs, but what I would recommend is 23 out of our 98 communities do a full value all the time. So if the average is going up 5%, the average goes up 5%. If the average is going down 4%, the average goes down 4%. You're always staying on the market. You're never saving up for a total reval again, because that's always on your budget. Your budget number is always the same.
So do we pay for that every year? From?
Yes, there is an actual cost. Now, for example, right now you're paying, what we do is we paid 3 years of maintenance and a total reevaluation. And then we divided that out among 4 years. So you didn't pay that big lump sum for the total reevaluation all in one shot, because obviously we know how it's not budget friendly that way. So we try to be budget friendly. So we take the 4 years, divide it by 4, add the total, and that's your value. If you guys went to full value after this contract is done, it'll actually probably be cheaper, because we're not doing walkthroughs, we're just doing full value.
thank you for that explanation.
Sure. Any more questions?
All right.
What
we
are
know-
your hours here at Platteville? Wednesday?
Office hours?
Yeah, the office hours are on Wednesdays, and I'm not sure the time. You usually see Gary Deering here. He's actually your statutory assessor.
It's 12:30 to 4:30 on Wednesday, second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
That is another thing I really would like to touch base. And obviously, each community is different on how they look at things. Obviously, we've done this a long time. We do a lot of communities. I do office hours in a lot of communities. I would say over the last 4 years, most of my communities that were doing office hours don't do them anymore, because once again, there's a cost for that. I'm here. If somebody has a question, they don't wait till Wednesday at 12:30 to contact me. As soon as they have a question, they either email me, write it in a letter, call my office. We would certainly be willing to do office hours anytime, but it's not really economical for a community of this size to be doing office hours. That's certainly something that the board could also look at as cost savings.
All right, again, thank you.
Thank you.
So that was our first special presentation. The next one is PATH, which stands for Platteville Arts, Trails, and History Project Report.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Bolander, and I'm the director of the Mining and Rollo Jameson Museums. I really appreciate you giving me this time tonight to update you on the PATH project and the National Endowment for the Arts Our Town grant project that we're doing. So just a little background. I first encountered this project and the idea of this project at a Unite Platteville meeting back over a year ago now, and where the members were bringing the project, the potential project, to Unite to see if it was a project they would like to apply for a grant from. Now, Unite decided it wasn't a good. Am I too far away or? Okay,
Temperamental.
I'll just ignore it. They decided it wasn't really a good fit for their mission, but there was enough interest there at that meeting that we decided to go forward, and I volunteered to hold a meeting where we brought a bunch of different people from the arts and planning communities together to see if there was a need to do this in Platteville and any enthusiasm. So we did that in April 2016. And it was really, there was a lot of excitement, and the conversation really focused around these questions that you see here. So really, what do you love about Platteville? What is unique about Platteville? What our strengths and assets are here? And really what challenges we have. And it became really clear that everybody loved Platteville. We have a lot of great existing programs and a rich and unique history, but we also had some challenges. A lot of our ideas had to do with building upon what we already had going in town and making it stronger. So we wanted to find a way to be more strategic about what we were doing. The ultimate outcomes that we talked about that day ranged from having a cohesive arts and culture plan to maybe having fewer empty storefronts downtown to having more interaction between City Park and the auditorium. We decided it was worth our time to put together a small working group to finalize a project and write a grant. So the smaller working group met once or twice a month between April and September, and we came to the conclusion through a lot of discussion and that really going through the process of creating an arts and culture plan for Platteville would be beneficial for everyone in the community. For individuals, for schools, for the city, and for small nonprofit organizations. We want to build on past planning efforts like the Grow Southwest Wisconsin project and the city plans, and incorporate planning process from arts planning, like the creative placemaking planning workbook. Sorry, there's a lot of syllables in there, and the arts and small community guides. So we envision a plan that doesn't sit on the shelf, but instead inspires us and demonstrates interest and support for placemaking projects that will make us more competitive for grants and funding in the future. But not just from the arts community, but also from the economic side. We really want to answer the question, how do we make Platteville an even better place to live, a place to work, and a place to go to school? So the project that we came up with is to do this cultural plan. And the majority of the funding that we get from the grant goes for the planning process. And we received word this summer that we got the grant. We're really excited. I was in the middle of a conference in St. Louis, and I went, yes, very quietly during the presentation, of course. We received word we got the grant, and we're really excited to go forward. So I want to tell you a little bit about the grant itself. The National Endowment for the Arts, our town grants, are placemaking grants, and they are grants that require a partnership between a governmental unit and an arts organization. So for this project, the official partners for the grant are the City of Platteville's Museum Department and Arts Wisconsin. And Arts Wisconsin is a statewide organization, and their vision is that everyone, everywhere in Wisconsin should have the opportunity to experience the arts, and that the arts help and grow and sustain economic vitality, education, health, and vibrant communities throughout Wisconsin. We'll also have other partners, and we have partners that helped us throughout the grant writing process that come from the public schools, the music programs, the Driftless Market, the public library, the University of Wisconsin PACE program, and the Platteville Area Regional Chamber of Commerce, Main Street, and Unite Platteville. So there's a lot of people involved in these meetings. A question I get sometimes is, what is placemaking? And this grant program really focuses on placemaking projects and really what it is it's an emphasis. There's an emphasis on achieving economic development goals through strategies that incorporate arts, culture, and design. So we're really using these things to just try to make it a better, more attractive place for people to work, live, play, go to school. Let's get that one. I've also been asked who's involved in this project. everyone is involved in this project. It's going to be really fun. So if all of you are involved, hopefully everyone in this room. A community planning process like this can only really be successful if we are inclusive in planning and attempt to involve as many people as possible. So the beautiful, exciting part of this project is that I have absolutely no idea what will come out of it except for the plan itself. I have ideas. I'm sure everyone sitting at the table up here has ideas. I know some people over here have some ideas, but no one voice in this process can dominate. So you, your family members, and your neighbors are going to be the most important participants in this project. We are in the process of identifying core team members that will be doing the nitty-gritty planning process work, but we'll also have public meetings where we gather data, and this data will really drive the content of the final plan and whatever the final placemaking project is. We cannot do this without your support and participation. This grant project is a 2-year project starting August 1st of this year and going through the end of July 2019. So we're right where we want to be right now. We are finalizing the project scope and hopefully hiring the project manager. You might have seen that in your consent agenda today. And then we'll move into having our meetings, which will probably be monthly, establish, review, write the plan, and eventually we'll have public voting on a project, and we'll go forward and do the project. It's a big project. It's a 2-year project. Really excited about it. Everybody always wants to know how much it costs. So you might have heard the National Endowment for the Arts grants that we received was $25,000, and that is a matching grant, so we have to be able to match that. We expect to raise $13,500 to support the placemaking project, our project, whatever it is at the end. And then we have a lot of in-kind support, mostly in the form of people like myself, some people who work at the library, and Katz of Arts Wisconsin, and all the volunteers that'll be helping with the planning process. Also, we're going to have food at all our meetings, so it will be very fun. There's a lot of details on on what the planning process involves, but basically we're using an asset-based community development approach. So we're going to be mapping community assets and seeing what's special about us and how do we want to build on that. And it's an over a 12-month process, so you'll get a lot more updates from me in the next few months. There's a lot of ways that different people can help. We need people to be partners and be part of the core team that's going to meet monthly. We need people to participate in public meetings where we can always take donations, and we'll need a lot of volunteers. So I'll be back telling you more about this project, I'm sure, in the next few months. But right now what I want to know is what questions do you have for me about this PATH project and the National Endowment for the Arts grant, if any?
I don't know that I have any questions, but I was at the meeting that was held at the library, and I would have to say that room was certainly full of enthusiasm, and we had the opportunity to write down what you thought of Platteville now, and maybe some things that you wished happened in Platteville that could happen in Platteville. So if you have ideas, you can comments, whatever. No idea is crazy. It's, whatever you think maybe would be interesting, exciting.
Yep, and all our contact information is on the website. If you go to platteville.org/PATH, PATH.
And do you have your core group established, or are you still looking for
Not
some?
100%,
Not 100%.
but we're working on it. We will. We're really excited to bring on the project manager. So once we get that project manager hired in, we're gonna go forward with blazing speed.
Any other questions or comments, anyone?
Question. Income and expenses, it says in-kind support. Is that $47,800? Is that people working, doing things?
As people working, so that's a percentage of my salary. That's part of the match for the grant. It's all the people on the core group, their time is worth. There's a formula for how much time is worth of volunteers. There's some of the library staff time that's allotted in that. So it's mostly people. And I do have the grant with me, so if you'd like to discuss those details, we can do that after the meeting or now.
Okay, in this document from written by you, I was curious as to the celebration project.
This,
Is this a big blast, and then what happens after that?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that, Ken. Thank you, or Mr. Killian. The celebration project is the big placemaking project at the end. So I don't know what it's going to be yet. I can't answer the question because it'll come out of the planning process. So, but I could say it might be a piece of public artwork. It might be a festival. It might be a music performance. It could be any number of things. But that's going to be determined by the planning process itself.
Now, what's the long-term picture after this is all true and you have the celebration project? What happens then in the next 5 years after that?
Oh, well, we have a plan, so then we can follow our plan, and hopefully we'll have suggestions that will help organizations like mine and other arts organizations and cultural organizations really go forward and do the best work they can from the community. We're going to have, right now we have our individual missions and we're going about our work, and we know that we're fulfilling our missions in some ways, but we don't always have that direct feedback of what it is the community wants. This will give us that, and it will help us in grant writing and project formation and things like that.
Maybe I could chime in just a tiny bit, but we had talked about at one time in our work plan the idea of what's the community's brand. And we've been talking about path and connection with that goal, because it will be a way for through the community's participation to really highlight what's special and unique about Platteville as related to trails and art and history. And then that can become a unifying theme or a brand that again gets not only advanced by this group, but other auxiliary groups throughout the community.
Any other questions or comments from anyone? All right, well, don't be shy. Contact Diana if you have questions or ideas. Thank you, Diana. All right, that concludes our special presentations. We'll go on to consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please indicate to the council president if you prefer separate discussion and action. A is council minutes from the August 22nd, 17 regular meeting. B, payment of bills. C is financial report for August. D, appointments to boards and commissions, and I have a few this evening. The Commission on Aging, a 3-year term ending in 7/1/20, Joyce Boss. Library Board, it's a partial term ending 5/1/19, Danny Chow. And the Board of Appeals, the position actually is available October 1st of this year. And it's a 3-year term, and Mike Osterholz has agreed to serve on that. We also need more people for other boards and commissions and committees, so if you'd like to put your name in, please do so. E is licenses in your packet, 1-year and 2-year operator licenses to sell or serve alcohol. We have 2 permit requests, a parade permit for the Platteville High School homecoming on Friday, October 6th, starting at 1:30 p.m., and a street closing permit for St. Mary's Parish on Sunday, September 24th, from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. for their parish festival. And Halloween is coming up. The trick-or-treating hours are Tuesday, October 31st, from 4 p.m. until 7 o'clock p.m. And also, Diana referenced this, the PATH administrator contract as part of the award. There is funding in there for an administrator, and the information is in your packet that the group is recommending Angie Wright be the person hired for that contract. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent calendar?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. We'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. I do not have anyone who signed to speak on any issue this evening, so we'll go on from there. Reports in the packet. Freudenreich Animal Care Trust, Westerby.
Nothing to add.
Community Safe Routes, Westerby.
Nothing to add.
Historic Preservation Commission, Killian.
No additions?
Parks, Forestry, and Recreation Committee, Francis.
We are now at full capacity. We have our 3 new members. That was the first meeting that they were at.
Great. We thank them for their service. Museum Board, Westerby.
Nothing to add.
You're pretty busy.
This week.
Zoning Board of Appeals, no.
Nothing to add.
Other reports in our packet. City Attorney itemized report for August, the Water and Sewer Financial Report for August, Airport Financial Report for August, and the Department Progress Reports. Any questions or comments on any of that information?
Yes.
Okay.
The police department, you have listed a community picnic, September 28th. Are you going to publish details about that?
Yes, we
In the-
are. We're gonna have that on our website, our Facebook page, and we're putting out flyers here, hopefully starting about Sunday.
Okay, is that gonna be the whole community? Or just
Typic-
gonna be
Typically,
over
what
at
we
Valley View, or what?
typically we've kind of focused on a lot of the areas that are a little bit more dominated by rentals to try and reach a lot of the students and the people that live directly adjacent to them.
So the location is gonna be Valley View?
Right.
And what's the time of it as far as during the day? Is that made up
That's
yet?
still to be determined, but we're looking at probably about 5 to 7 p.m. That's what we've done in past years.
Is there gonna be a presentation or a program or anything?
No, it's pretty informal. Q&A and a lot of interaction between the attendees and the officers that are there at the picnic.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions on any of the information? All right, then we'll go on to the first action item, which is Resolution 1719, authorizing participation in Community Development Investment Grant Program, former Pioneer Ford site. Joe?
Yes, as part of that redevelopment plan for that site, General Capital is still working on their financing package, trying to fill in some of the gaps that they have. If you recall some of the discussion previously, the primary funding for that project is the low-income housing tax credits, and those tax credits are not selling at the rate that they had initially had been at years ago when they started planning for this project. So that's one example of where there's a gap. So to try to fill in those items, they're looking to apply for a grant through Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC. It's a community development investment grant, and it's funds to help with primarily redevelopment projects in downtown areas is kind of their main target. But the grant would fund up to $250,000. It's a matching grant, but that would be the maximum. They're kind of earmarking the funds to go towards the rehabbing the former Pioneer Ford dealership building, the white building on the corner of Pine and Oak. So if they were to get these grants, it would help with that expense. So one of the requirements of the application is to have a resolution from the council authorizing the submittal of that application. So staff does recommend approval of the attached resolution. Any questions?
Well, I called this morning about getting a copy or viewing a copy of the grant application. Did you write the grant or somebody else?
General Capital is working on that. It's not complete yet, but as soon as I get a copy, I can forward it on. It hasn't been submitted yet. Actually, hasn't been completed yet.
Okay, but tonight we're being asked to take action on it, and I like to read the thing over before I make a vote on this.
As soon as I get the grant application, I'll send it to you, but I don't have anything as of today.
And
But
guess
you're asking us to vote on this thing tonight, and this is the first time on the agenda.
Just to clarify, the grant wouldn't be to the city of Platteville, it's to General Capital, is that correct, or no?
Well, it's kind of a pass-through grant.
Pass-through grant,
Municipality would be,
So this is, they're
required
the
to be
applicant, and this is a resolution in support of their application.
And General Capital would, you said it's a matching grant, so General Capital would be responsible for the match, not the city.
correct.
Oops, passed through.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution 17-9, authorizing, a resolution authorizing the city of relating to the city of Platteville participating in the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation's Community Development Investment Grant Program.
I second.
We have a motion and a second.
I'll second.
Barb did, yep.
Okay, I
Do
have
that, Barb.
clarification.
Go ahead.
You said 17-09?
No, 17-19.
19, okay.
Okay,
My-
17-19.
Yep.
All right, we'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
No,
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Next item is Resolution 1720, authorizing the issuance and sale of $3,165,000 general obligation refunding bonds, Series 2017B.
And to share the results with us, we have Don Gunderson with Ellers.
And we have information in front of us, so.
Good evening. I had handed out two documents to you this evening. One of them is entitled a Sale Day Report, and one of them is a resolution. When we consider action on this, you'll be considering the resolution that I handed out. That was prepared today by your bond attorney, Quarles and Brady, and it contains the actual results of the sale, which is a lower dollar amount, so it's the lower dollar amount you're approving. So I'm going to walk through the sale day report, but I kind of want to bring us back from the past to where we are today and why we're here. During our long-range planning process, we were reviewing your existing debt structure and your tax increment districts, and deemed that it was beneficial to the city to look at a restructuring of some of existing debt to aid in the planning and management of your future tax needs here at the city. So we, as part of that group, you asked us to proceed with the preparation of doing a refunding on your 2014 A issue. And on August 8th, then, we were back with a resolution for you to adopt for us to proceed with that refunding. That resolution with the presale report was to issue $4,365,000 of refunding bonds. Now, you'll see that the dollar amount we're asking you to approve this evening is substantially less than that, and I wanted to give you a little background on that. When we were preparing the information with our bond attorneys, and last week they contacted us, and with IRS rules on refunding, issuing new debt to refund old debt, anything prior to the call date, and we're doing this earlier in the call date, we had structured principal payments because we didn't want to not pay principal in the next few years. Well, under IRS rules, you can't borrow debt to pay off existing debt. So we had to kind of change our structuring method, and we're calling less of the old issue. So you'll continue to pay. Our initial plan was to basically get rid of the entire old issue and refinance it with a new issue. We're not able to do that, so we're keeping a portion of the old issue and only refinancing a portion, starting with a later principal payment on the new issue, coming to the same end results, and I'll explain that when we get to the comparison. So we updated before we went to market, and we went to market this morning for competitive sale for $3,165,000. So that was the resolution that you had before you. So that kind of gets us back to why the dollar amount is lower. So our goal, we're accomplishing the same goal. We're saving basically the same amount of money in the years we wanted to save, and we shifted payments in later years, but our new issue would be a smaller dollar amount. So with all that said, and I'll certainly go back and answer any questions, the status of the sale, starting on page 2 of the sale day report, again, we took bids this morning at 10:30. And we're doing what's called an advance refunding of that 2014 issue. We actually, between the time we met with you before and we were here tonight, we had a rating review with Standard & Poor's. And so they re-looked at your credit quality, and we had talked to them earlier in the year about the fact that we were doing this refunding and restructuring, and we discussed that again with them. But they affirmed your rating as a AA-. We've attached that rating report in this document, so take the time to review that. They did upgrade you in the criteria. Your overall rating remained the same, but there's various components. and you now have like the highest on the management level, and they attributed that to the long-range planning efforts that you went through this year. So that was a real positive, and that's discussed in that report. It says we received 7 bids, but I thought we had 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, I think I wrote earlier with 8 bids, but we had 7 bids came in today on the issue, and BOK Financial Securities out of Milwaukee was the winning bid. So we've tabulated that on the next couple pages. But comparing our high bid to our low bid, here our low bid was a true interest cost of 1.929. And the difference was about 81,000, so the benefit of certainly taking the low bid. We had a future cost, and we'll compare that, of 307,000, present value cost about 86,000. So I'll kind of go through how that compares to where we were before. But because of the premium that we received on the issue, we had a premium of 163,000, and our issue expenses were lower than our planning estimates. We were able to downsize from the 3,165,000 to the 2,975,000 that you're approving. So we are actually able to issue less debt and still accomplish our goals. So beginning on page 3 then is a list of all the underwriters that bid. You can see, and the winning bid is based upon the percent of interest cost at the far right. BOK Financial, they partnered with Clare Bank here in Platteville, so there was a local bank that participated with them in this. Stephen Nicholas and SunTrust Bank, so they had they put together a group that bought the bonds. UMB Bank out of Kansas City, Northland Securities out of Minnesota, Baird out of Milwaukee, Piper Jaffray out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, Bankers Bank out of Madison, and Raymond James out of Memphis. So a lot of regional interest in the issue. Again, the winning bid was BOK Bach. So beginning on page 5, again, we had adjusted our pre-sale estimates and were issuing a smaller amount, but our savings were in some of the cost of issuance, and of course, then the premium that we received allowed us to downsize. So this kind of is a side-by-side comparison of our planning estimate costs and our actual costs, and I do see there's one number that got typed in here wrong on the accounting fee. That should be $2,500. That didn't change from the pre-sale estimates, but I think those are just coded in, so there's no mathematical error there. So our underwriter estimates were a little bit lower, and some of our other costs were lower, so allowed us to increase the amount we downsized. The page 6 of this report is the structure of the new issue. From our amended planning estimates, we downsized by 190,000. Our interest costs were 39,000 less, and overall about 229,000 from our pre-planning estimate. And on page 7 then is really the most important page, I think, here is our goal was to create some savings on your debt service in the early years, and we were shifting some of that cost into later years to give you a more manageable overall debt levy. So the column that's kind of highlighted in yellow shows that our future cost is 307,000. Our present value cost is about 86,000. Our pre-planning estimates, to kind of work this backwards of how this has changed, we had updated that at that estimate we were at a 537,000 loss, 186 present value. Backing up even farther, when we were here the night to set the sale, we were estimating a 565,000 loss. And when we were doing our planning estimates and we decided to, in the long-range planning, our future loss was 628,000. So the great news here is when we decided to move forward with this, we recognized a potential cost, and 628,000, that reality of that cost has been dropped down to 300,000. So over the next 12 years, that on a present value basis is about 86,000. So it's a rather low cost to accomplish, I think, a big benefit to the city in terms of its next several years in planning and structuring and managing your debt levy. So, we're very pleased with the results of this sale today. The very last, the rating report follows this report, and the last schedule in this document is just kind of, we always like to look back at where interest rates have been and where they are. And this is a 5-year look back of the bond indices chart. And you can see that since the beginning of this year, we're down a ways in terms of interest cost and below average over the last 5 years in terms of where interest rates were. So, a lot of interest in the market right now, so getting 7 bids is a great thing, and it certainly helps in obtaining low interest rates. So if you have any questions on any of this, I know it was a lot of information, I'm happy to answer.
So we're going to be asking for 190,000 less.
Yeah, right, you'll be issuing 190,000 less in bonds and still obtaining the savings. So our
Still
target.
obtain the goals that we set out.
Yes,
as far as-
still obtaining the same goals. And if, a side-by-side comparison, the savings is within $5,000, $5,000 or so on the first years, but where we benefited with the restructuring, the resizing is in the cost numbers on the back end. So we were able to reduce those costs overall. And so that 190,000 we took off just helped lower the cost. The lower than projected interest rates, because we had a good sale result today, helped lower the overall cost as well.
Any other questions? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I move to approve the resolution, is that what it is?
Yes.
Okay. That has a different number, but it's gonna be for the number that's,
Yep.
in here. What's the number of the resolution? Mine has no number.
It doesn't have a number, but it has the amounts.
I approve the
Be
resolution.
resolution 1720.
$2,975,000.
Second.
Sorry, Jan, did you have a resolution number?
It'll be resolution 1720.
1720, yeah.
1720.
Yes, looking right at.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 1720. We'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby, Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much for your effort.
You're welcome.
Continual effort.
All right, the next item is a Sidewalk Cafe permit for 9296 East Main Street. Joe?
Yes, the property was most recently the Cold Fusion Restaurant. It is the proposed location for the second in Main, be coffee shop, cafe, and pub. To go along with that business, the owners would like to have a sidewalk cafe where they would place tables and chairs out on the public sidewalk in front of the building. It'd be along the Main Street facade. 4 metal tables and 8 metal chairs that would go in front of basically the picture windows, the large storefront windows in front of that building. The location of those chairs does meet the requirements of the Sidewalk Cafe ordinance. They would be placed on the sidewalk when they're open for business, removed during the evenings, and obviously when the weather does not cooperate, they would be placed indoors at those times. Otherwise, it does meet our requirements. Staff does recommend approval, and the Plan Commission reviewed this at their meeting last night and also recommended approval. Any questions?
Questions, anyone?
Well, my biggest concern is that it not turn into a place to smoke, since I am assuming this is an extension of the restaurant. And the state of Wisconsin says you don't smoke in the restaurant.
I'm not sure if the state requirements cover that, since it's outside, is what we're understanding. But the applicant has indicated that their intent is not to allow smoking at these tables.
That question was raised last night at the Plan Commission as well, and yes, that was the response of the applicant, that they did not want to have smoking at the table.
Because I think it's difficult walking by as a sale opportunity to bring you into the business and have this situation.
And the applicant is here if you'd like to
Would
have
you like
them
to come up
address
to
that.
the microphone and answer any
Sorry,
questions?
I didn't see you.
Again, if you would give your name and address for our purposes.
Michael Osterholtz, 650 Water Street here in town, and going from bonds to cafe sidewalks. Wow. Go ahead. What was your question again?
About smoking.
We're absolutely not going to allow smoking in front of the building. There will be postings outside on each one of the tables that will indicate that it is a non-smoking site. Also, policy and procedures for the staff will be to police that people are not sitting there smoking and politely asking them or reminding them not to smoke if they do. Same with loitering. If it's not a paying customer, we'll make sure to appropriately and politely ask them to move on if they chose to just stop and take a break. So we don't want to even have any sort of mess with that in any way, shape, or form.
Well, I want this to be successful, which means other establishments might look into working for them, and I feel the people that are going to stop there and buy dinner are not gonna have that. It won't work for them.
Won't work what?
To have that as a smoking environment. I know I won't be able to stop there, so,
But we're not going to.
yeah, that's what
okay.
I'm saying.
No, well,
It's
I'm
just
in
an
agreement with you.
explanation. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, question, is there, I don't know, right, I'm not down there on Second Street, okay, that's the background. Is there much carry out of beer from Second Street establishments? Would they be coming to your tables?
Well,
Are you gonna
we're-
monitor that
You mean from our business?
from other businesses, from Second Street businesses?
Well, if they're carrying a beer outside, I assume that's illegal, and they would be ticketed, correct?
Yeah,
So,
can't have an open intoxicant.
Yes, okay.
so yeah, if they bought a beer at our establishment and they went out and sat at the table, they would be refined to the table area as defined in the ordinance. But if they came from another business, I wouldn't have as much control over that other than asking
Yeah,
them to
but
leave
then
or
the-
confiscating the beer.
How are you gonna monitor that if the beer is from your place versus being carried in?
All the wait staff.
Well, the wait staff would monitor that, and we're also not going to be open to the late hours that the typical establishments on Second Street would struggle with something like that. I believe the office hours we turned in, and then we talked about last night at the Planning Commission, where we're looking to close between 9 and 10 o'clock in the evening, which is well before the rowdiness of Second Street would struggle with something like that. Typically, during those periods of time, it's pretty quiet downtown, even on a Friday or Saturday.
What time do they close, Chief? 2 o'clock, 2:30? The bars close at 2:30?
2 o'clock,
I'm just asking when the bars close.
and 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock,
Sunday
okay.
through Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday, 2:30.
2:30, okay.
Yeah, but again, we're not going to be that sort of establishment, so 9, 10 o'clock at night, since we'll be more of a cafe restaurant, we intend to close up the doors unless all you folks are there, in which case we'd stay open.
There you are, Ken.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I make a motion, we approve the sidewalk cafe permit for 92/96 East Main Street as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, we'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby.
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item, contract 1517, street maintenance, thin overlay. Howard.
Yes. This is our annual thin overlay contract. The budget is $105,000 for our thin overlays. Based on the bids, we can do only a certain amount of streets. I'm recommending that we do Harrison from Chestnut to the East End, Union from Perry to Western, Market from Elm to Hickory, Camp from Fourth to Lancaster, Lutheran from Furnace to Mineral, Lincoln from Madison to Grant, Grant from Lincoln to May. That put together will be a little over 110,000. I believe that we have enough in our CIP budget to cover that amount. It's a total of 1,400 tons, give or take, and the increase was just slightly over 1% from last year was there in the bid price. So I'm recommending approval.
Questions, anybody? A motion?
I move to approve the thin overlay for the streets so designated at a cost $167,137.34.
Second.
I think it's
Want to change that?
110,000, Ken.
The 110 is what I was
110?
asking, but
He'll take whatever
take
money
it.
you can do that if you want. I'm not sure where we're getting the
Yeah, the
money.
original was 106, or the one bid was 167, right, Howard? But then some streets are dropped off.
Correct.
Okay. $110,192.30.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and we'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Last action item, amend resolution 1717, accepting gift of outdoor fitness center.
Yes, in your packet is a red line copy of the resolution. Unfortunately, what was in your packet last time was not the final draft. Staff had already reviewed these, but unfortunately, like I said, that was not what was included in your packet. So this is correcting some of the changes that had been made. Probably the most notable one to point out is that the steering committee is looking to dissolve themselves. So it would be the Platteville Community Arboretum that would continue to promote the sponsorship and naming rights. And that would be used for maintenance along the Roundtree Branch Trail. That's probably the only change of note. Everything else is more just wording.
Questions, anyone?
Make a motion to approve the amended resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, we'll vote.
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westerby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Information and discussion, contract 1617, highway painting.
Yes, we do highway painting every year, and there were two bidders. The base bid was to do center line and special markings on Water Street from Pine to North Side Drive. Reason why we stop at North Side is that's the end of the city responsibility. The county accepts responsibility north of there. Our alternate bid was to do center line and the Sharrows on Main Street between Chestnut and Water. Staff is recommending that we award the base bid and alternate A to Guideline Pavement at the bid price of $32,121.25.
Any questions? This will be on for action next time.
How much had we budgeted?
I need to look at that. I think it was 30,000.
So then it would take a change in the budget?
We would absorb it with, from savings from other projects.
Any other questions?
Are these new persons for bidding, or have we used them in the past?
Both of all three of these who we sent bid packages to have bid in the past. I'd have to look to see which ones have actually done the work here in the past. But all three of these on the bid tabulation, we've sent to them in the past and gotten bids from them, from all three of them in the past.
So,
I will
some
have
have done work here.
Yes, and I'll have that for you next
We'll do
time.
that next time, okay.
Next is vehicle replacement, Platteville Senior Center.
Yes, so our senior center staff, including the senior center manager and bus driver, have done quite a bit of research, as you know, to try to find ways to cut costs while maintaining the services they're providing for our seniors in the community. That led them to the discussion of what their needs were in terms of a vehicle. What they've found is that what they truly need is simply one reliable minivan type vehicle to serve the residents, including bringing people to the center and delivering meals to those that are homebound. And with that, when they were doing their research of what type of vehicle they wanted, they came to the realization that there was currently only one manufacturer currently making the minivan type vehicle that they were looking for. They approached, happened to be Ubersox in town here, about what type of deal they could get on that vehicle, and what they came up with is Ubersox was willing to exchange the current bus, which is a 2010, and their current minivan, which is a 2003 with 140,000 miles on it, for a brand new 2006 or 2017 minivan that would suit their needs. In addition to that, Ubersox has agreed to donate $1,000 to the Platteville Senior Center, kind of as a gift for going through with this trade, and just kind of as a gift in general to the Platteville Senior Center. So our staff were happy with that. We have reviewed the quotes provided both for our existing vehicles and the new vehicle, and we did not feel there was any discrepancy between what Ubersox was proposing and what we felt was the fair market value for either of those vehicles. So staff was recommending to go ahead with that exchange.
Any questions? All right, thank you. The last one is the former Pioneer Ford project update.
Yeah, we just wanted to provide a little update as to where we are in this project, primarily as it relates to the memorandum agreement for the former Gates Hotel. If you recall, the first step in that process was to have General Capital look at that building to see if they'd be interested in rehabbing it and keeping it themselves. They took a look at it and indicated they were not interested in doing that, so that was step A. They also indicated that they were not in favor of having the development agreement or prior zoning approval amended to allow someone else to remodel that building. And at the August 8th council meeting, the council voted to not proceed with that step any further, so they suggested moving on. We had also done a request for proposals to seek other developers that may be interested in relocating that structure. We did not get a proposal submitted for that. The Historic Preservation Commission has indicated they do have somebody that may be interested in doing that, and I believe somebody had looked at it last Friday. We have not received an actual proposal yet, but there's a tight timeline on that, so we would need to get something very soon. That was the step C in the agreement. Step D was basically documenting the structure, and speaking with Chip Brown from the State Historic Preservation Office, he kind of indicated that has already been done with some of the information that was previously submitted, but we would fill in any blanks that would need to be done for that. And then it would proceed with trying to salvage any materials that may be worth keeping or reusing. I'm waiting for some information back from the potential demolition contractor on what they have in mind for that, but that would be step E, and then we would, assuming we don't get an adequate proposal that's approved by the council, we would proceed with the demolition of the building. If you recall, the council had previously awarded the bids to demolish the other two buildings on that site, which should start within the next week or two. They're waiting for the asbestos contractor. Got a little bit delayed on some other project, but they will be starting that later this month. Rural Excavating was the low bidder for those two buildings. They are also the low bidder to take down this building if we get to that point, with a bid of $22,500. So unless an adequate other proposal is submitted, we will be recommending at the next meeting to proceed with awarding the demolition bid to rural excavating. The final step in the Section 106 process, which is the process that required this memorandum of agreement, is to submit the executed memorandum of agreement document, and I also have to do some kind of a summary of the process to the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and then that will complete that required process. So I will probably be sending that document out, I'm hoping tomorrow. Any questions?
I have a question, excuse me, on the last, where it says final step. What are the required signatures?
For this memorandum of agreement, the required signatures would be the City of Platteville and the State Historic Preservation Office, which have both signed the document.
How about the Historic Preservation Commission?
The Historic Preservation Commission is considered a concurring party to the document, which means if they sign it, they're just recognizing that they're aware of the document, have been involved in the process. Their signature is not required. And the agreement, if you recall, also had mentioned the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska as an invited signatory. They have indicated they're not interested in being a party to the agreement, and their signature is also not required.
So it looks like we don't have any voice.
Well, your voice, as far as the commission, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, has
As
been
far as the
involvement that
approval
you've
or
had so
disapproval
far.
of the MOA.
Your involvement has been through the procedure that we followed so far.
Now we're being told that we don't have a need to sign it.
Correct.
Well, I'm interested, as far as, they want to work on the Ford building, and I wanted to see what they were gonna do with that as far as their funding request, because that could have been combined with the Gates Hotel as far as tax credits. And the Gates Hotel could have been done at a much lower cost than they're talking about. So that's why I voted against that.
Any other comments or questions? That completes information and discussion.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Full vote?
Stockhausen,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Nall,
Yes.
Westaby,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Francis.
Yes.
Motion carries.